Well, still with us is Jeremy Saltan, political advisor and director of English operations for Naftali Bennett's Yamina Party, and a diplomatic correspondent, Eli Hochenberg. And Jeremy, before the break, we talked a little about President Reuven Rivlin and his comments. He's going to have to make a big decision, potentially in 6 days. He gets to decide if Netanyahu doesn't succeed, who gets to form the next government. Where we left it, Yair Lapid had the most recommendations, as came in second. But some might say Naftali Bennett may have the better chance to form a government. Will the Yamina Party try to speak with or advocate to, if this comes to this, President Rivlin to give Naftali Bennett that opportunity, not Yair Lapid?
Well, what I'll tell you is this. Rivlin has 4 options. I'll tell you which one I personally think he should take.
I can imagine, but go ahead.
So there are 4 options. One is to extend the mandate. We all know that's not going to happen. The second option is to say that he's not going to give out a second mandate and to kick it over to the Knesset like he did in the third election.
Which is a possibility.
It's a possibility. I recommend against it. It's a lot easier. I think we all understand why. It's a lot easier to form a government if there's a second mandate instead of putting us in the Wild West scenario where every individual in K can sign for whoever and we have no control over what happens. The third option is you can say, look, Lapid got the second amount of recommendations. I'm going to give it to him and see what happens. The fourth option is that he can go ahead and say that he's going to do consultations again. If he does consultations again, you have 2 different things that could happen. One is the Likud puts a different candidate instead of Benjamin Netanyahu, and that would be very interesting to see who that might be and what would happen and who might support him. But assuming the Likud says that they're going to punt the football as well and not recommend anybody, there's going to be a question of a lot of the parties, whether it is UTJ, Shas, Smotrich, even Gidon Sar, who did not make a decision last time around, or even Mansour Abbas, who it is that they would suggest. You know, Benny Gantz even said that it isn't 100% that if we go to consultations again, that he would go and recommend Lapid as well. So you could have a situation where if we have consultations in a second round, that Bennett would get more nominations than Lapid, and then one would assume that Bennett would get the mandate. I think out of the 4 options, that would be the best. But like I said, I hope that before we get to that we're able to form a government and not have to go to the process.
We'll see. Eli, if that's those, we know which one Jeremy prefers. Which do you think is the most likely?
Oh, wow. That's an even tougher question. The president said that he is reluctant to give the mandate unless he sees a feasible option of forming a government, a second mandate, that is. And this is why, again, we're seeing those different political players rushing. We've seen hours and hours of negotiations between the Yamina Party and the New Hope Party of Gidon Sar today, just to achieve that, to come to the president by this coming Tuesday and say, we have a solid option to form a government. Unless they do that, it is hard to assume that the president will give it another shot. But the main question remains whether the so-called change bloc or elements of it are still willing to even discuss with Netanyahu. And again, we've mentioned Benny Gantz still this very evening refuses to rule out this option. And I will ask you, Jeremy, if Netanyahu offers Gidon Sar to become first in rotation, will Naftali Bennett join and then the right-wing government will be formed?
Briefly, Jeremy.
We want to see a right-wing government. We'll do what we have to do to make that happen.
Okay.
All right. I just want to remind maybe our viewers to understand that we're going into this detail because we're talking about the very real possibility that in the coming month, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's dozen-year-long run as the leader of this country could have come to an end.
Or not.
Or not. But I would say that's certainly a more real possibility at this stage than it has been at any time in the past dozen years. But anything certainly is possible. Eli Hochenberg and Jeremy Saltan of the Yamina Party, thank you for joining us.